Yeah, Anjan, can you start?
Yeah, should we begin?
Yes.
Okay. So, as part of this SSK talks that we are having today, we are going to welcome Professor Anup Dhar, and the one of the thing is he requires a little bit of introduction. So I'll take little time, 2-3 minutes, to introduce him, and then move on to his talk. And Anup, you will have 40 to 50 minutes for your presentation, and then there will be question answer session or discussion. Okay. So, so let me introduce. Very difficult to introduce Anup, uh, because Anup Dhar is a polymath in the true sense of the term. He studied medicine and was a medical doctor in Kolkata, who later did his PhD in philosophy from Jadavpur University in Kolkata. His philosophy topic was on Freud, return to Freud, and feminist term. He was formerly associated with the Center for the Study of Culture and Society, uh, Bangalore, and then B.R. Ambedkar University in New Delhi, where he founded and directed the Action Research MPhil program in Philosophy of Development Practice. He is presently a fellow at the Hans Killian and Lotte Kohler Center, KKC, for Cultural Psychology and Historical Anthropology, Ruhr-University, Bochum. He also to this day remains a practicing psychoanalytic therapist. Throughout his adult life, Anup remained actively involved in political practice, including very presently in the recent decade, I'll guess, helping build with his students and community members, agricultural producers cooperatives in the indigenous societies of Central and Eastern India, some of which have been very successful. He has also written numerous books and articles on various subjects, including on the interface of Marxism, psychoanalysis, and development very recently. From his own practical engagement, as far as I know, he has always felt that for the political, that is the Marxian political, to be relevant, it is necessary, among other things, to locate an outside to the hegemonic reality. For that, one needs to at least engage with and navigate at the intersection of both capitalism and development. To this end, as against third world, he has helped develop the concept of world of the third as the outside of capitalist development, which arguably remains the master trope actually of the Southern context, but also generally. Today, Anup is going to talk about world of the third and its relation with Marxism. So Anup, I welcome you all.
Thank you. Thank you for this invitation also. And it is actually an opportunity for us to share some of our work. I will take you to the slide. Is the slide sharing? Huh?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. We can see.
I'm starting with the last slide first, actually, because I want to actually acknowledge three of our students. I will say our because they also have known and benefited and learned from Anjan's work in the last 2 decades, actually. Bhavya, Swarnima, and Ashutosh. I'll come back to their work at the end as Anjan was trying to show us that we have tried to work creating post-capitalist, communist agricultural collectives in central India, largely in indigenous contexts and in forest societies, but I'll come to that at the end if we get time. But I wanted to start with the work of these three, actually, on which today's talk partially builds, Bhavya, Swarnima, and Ashutosh. Today's discussion would like to look at Marx as a philosopher of fetishism, number one, and I'll develop this as we go along, a philosopher of hegemony and a philosopher of counter-hegemonic praxis. And this is important to set up the stage for post-capitalist praxis. I would like to argue that Marx, and this is work that I have done with Anjan for the last 2 decades, actually. So whenever I say I, if I mistakenly say I, it means we. Okay, it will always mean we, even if I mistakenly say I. Okay. So what we are trying to do over here is that see Marx as not a philosopher of realism, but as a philosopher of fetishism. And why fetishism is important for Marx, actually, is something we'll develop a little bit today, not much. Second, it's the philosophy of fetishism that actually opens up in Marx a philosophy of hegemony, which we will come to. And this is again Marx's movement from coercion to hegemony. Okay, so in fetishism, he moves from realism to fetishism. In the philosophy of hegemony, he moves from coercion to hegemony. And the philosophy of counter-hegemonic praxis. Marx was himself a philosopher, actually, with a PhD in philosophy. But Marx recreates philosophy as it does philosophy, and that is very, very important. Marx moves from philosophy to practical philosophy. He moves from philosophy as a mere way of knowing the world or assessing knowledge, which is epistemology, philosophy as epistemology, to philosophy as a way of life, as how we live. Who am I? Who is the laborer? What is labor? How does labor live? And how do we live our lives? So philosophy moves in Marx's work from philosophy as a way of knowing, mere knowing, to philosophy as knowing, doing, being. Who am I, actually? So philosophy becomes a question of practical philosophy in Marx, and that is how he breaks philosophy. So Marx breaks philosophy, Marx breaks a notion of coercion and moves us to hegemony, the hegemony of capital, and from mere realism of objects to fetishism, the power of the fetish, the fetishistic power of certain objects or ideas. Okay, so this is the basic premise on which I would like to build. I'll come to the fetishism question a little more in detail immediately, actually. This is one part. I'm just reading out a short section, very short section. In capital profit, or still better, capital interest, land rent, labor wages, we have the complete mystification of the capitalist mode of production, the conversion of social relations, human relations, into relations between things. This is Marx, actually. I'm quoting him. The idea of the fetish looks to have offered 2 significant angles to Marx. One, it helped Marx show how commodity, money, and capital were being imputed with a power that was much exaggerated. It also helped Marx show how labor's contribution was trivialized, how the social relation between humans had assumed a phantasmatic form in the fetishistic relationship between things. And that is one way to look at capitalism, actually. It converts relations between human beings to relations between things. Marx had begun volume 1. Yes.
Oh, no, we
Yes.
cannot see the screen. You wanted to show us the quote, right?
You want to look
No,
at the
no, no,
quote?
no, no, no. I mean, you are able to move the screen, right?
Yes, yes.
No,
Uh,
please
I,
continue.
I
Sorry,
can I
sorry.
can show the quote, but
No need, no need.
it's
No
okay.
need.
It's okay if I read it out. Marx had begun volume 1 with the idea of fetishism of commodities, and we all know this. But through volume 2 and 3, he expands the idea of fetish to include all the hydra-headed apparatuses of capital. The hegemonic form of capital is engendered out of a fetishization of the capitalist class process. And this is where we will go today, the capitalist class process. And by volume 3, Marx was able to distill the scattered ideas of fetishism to locate the central fetishistic function of capitalism. It is the delusion engendered in the hegemonized form or idea that money produces money, capital produces profit or interest. Only a complex theory of fetishism can explain why capital thus becomes a very mystic being, especially since all of labor's social productive forces appear mistakenly to be due to capital rather than labor as such, and seem to emanate from the womb of capital itself. Marx, volume 3, page 814 to 817. I have taken the quote from there, so that's the reference actually. I will come back to the slide now, and this is what we extend actually to the idea of third world, the fetishization of third world and of third worldism. And we'll come to that. I'll move to the next slide. Hope it has moved, Anjan. I largely over here try to build on the book we have just put out. It has just been published on the 4th of May, looks like. World of the Third and Hegemonic Capital. What is World of the Third? What is its difference with Third World? We'll come to that. We'll come to that as we go along. This has been written by Anjan and I. And in this, we look at the hegemonic form of capital very, very closely. Today, I will look at that in this discussion. And we will also look at the consent collaboration generating delusional veil. This is a complex phrase. We'll come to that slowly, how the delusional veil of third worldism is created and it is put on us in the global south as well as in East Asia. And East Asia becomes important over here. So the consent collaboration generating delusional veil that the third worldism is, and the hegemonic form of capital. Okay, we largely build on this book, parts of chapters in this book, in this discussion. I will also take up one point which is important actually to take note of the problem of third worldism. And third worldism comes to us like medicine. Development, capitalist development comes to us like medicine, but whether it is at all medicine or whether it is not medicine, but actually secretly a poison. And I take off from one quotation from Deleuze. Why do humans fight for their servitude? You can see this, I think. Why do humans fight for their servitude as stubbornly as though it were their salvation? And this is a critical question for Marx, actually, is the argument we would want to make. Marx, just one line on this, and it was a discovery that really hit me when I was here last year. What I found was that The Marx-Hegel connection we make conventionally may not be the only source for Marx, for either building his philosophy or critiquing earlier philosophies. It appears that Marx read Spinoza very closely in 1841, and Spinoza's book Tractatus Theologico-Politicus, actually. And Marx, these are days when we don't have photocopy. Marx actually handwrote chapters of that book and developed his work on that. And this is one angle I'm trying to highlight over here today, that one of the questions that is important for Marx would be, why do labor, why do third world, walk into third worldism, walk into capital labor logic, and as if walking into servitude as stubbornly as though it were their salvation. And this is an important question, actually, for largely political philosophy. Why do we do things do things with so much energy, when those are actually paths to our servitude and not our salvation, actually? And that is an important point Marx develops from Spinoza. Last point, I've done fetishism, I have done hegemony, how it is not merely coercion, but hegemony, how labor is hegemonized, how third world, we as third world subjects are hegemonized into third worldism and capitalist development, how we think development is going to liberate us. Okay, it is our salvation. I'll come to this as we go along. 2 slides, 2 minutes on Marx's turn to praxis. This is actually from a thesis 1 on the 11th of the 11th thesis on Feuerbach. Thesis 1, Marx begins thesis on Feuerbach with the question: the chief defect of all hitherto existing materialism. This is important. Marx is critiquing materialism, not idealism. The chief defect of all hitherto existing materialism. And what is the defect? The defect is that things, realities, sensuousness are looked at either objects or intuitions, but not as human sensuous activity, practice. And this is so important. There are no things in the world. Things don't fall from heaven. Marx repeatedly warns us. Things are produced through labor. And whatever are seen as things around us are all objects of labor, processes of labor and practice. They're all encrypted, encoded labor. They are the secret. They are the secret products of the secret abode of production. Okay, so in that sense, each object has coded, encrypted within it, actually, congealed labor. It's Marx's phrase, actually, congealed. Marx is very, very interested in the secret, in the congealed labor in each object, in each thing, and congealed practice in each object, in each thing. There is no food without cooking. So there is no food without practice. The next one, Marx opens up the question of practice even further, actually. He critiques Feuerbach, actually. Practice is conceived and fixed in its dirty Jewish manifestation. Now, why dirty? Why Jewish? What is Jewish about practice? And this is actually interesting. Marx distinguishes between the Christian God of the word and the Jewish God of the deed. The Jewish God is like a potter, actually, who creates by dirtying his or her hands, and he distinguishes between the God of word and the God of deed. Somebody who creates by the word, the Christian creation, through the word, through thought, and somebody who creates like a potter. And cooking is a good example over here, actually, the potter or the cook, actually, somebody who creates with the hands. And the importance of the hands in Marx and Marxism, even Engels's beautiful paper, The Part Played by Labor in the Transition, the part played by the hand in the transition from ape to human. We would not have become humans without the part played by the hand. It's not the brain, the part played by the hand and labor, actually, and practice. So it is in practice, indeed, indeed, that man must understand and experience themselves. And this becomes a very, very important point for Marx, actually, the question of praxis. So we have taken 3 steps now. First, fetishism, movement from mere realism that there are things in the world to fetishistic ideas about things, exaggerated ideas about things like religious fetish, like capitalism as fetishism, commodity fetishism, third worldism as fetishism. Step 1. Step 2, movement from coercion to hegemony. Why do we walk into our servitude as if it is our salvation? Okay. Number 3, the movement to praxis, the movement from philosophy to practical philosophy, and the movement to praxis. And now we will have to take that important step for today's discussion, the movement to post-capitalist praxis. How do we move to post-capitalist praxis? The next slide. When we talk of post-capitalist praxis, 1, 2, 3, 4 points become important for us. 1, we reject all forms of teleologism, Hegelian teleologism, number 1. Number 2, we also reject that there is a higher plane in which things will get sorted out, because any idea of a higher plane, whether state or party, any higher plane where things will get sorted out actually is problematic for us. Okay. And Marx is a philosopher of materialism, practical materialism, not mechanical materialism. Marx is a philosopher of immanent materialism. So things are not going to get sorted, corrected at a higher transcendental level. Things have to be sorted in this life, not in the next life, and in this world, and in concrete material reality. 2, working from grassroots outward, not upwards, outward, making horizontal connections and not going for hierarchical pyramidal structures. So Marx actually produces in post-capitalist praxis, and these are scattered Spinozist thoughts in Marx's work, actually, which we are trying to excavate now from Marx's works, especially the 3 volumes of Capital, and the importance of horizontal connections in Marx, actually. And the third is very, very important for us in India and the global South, in East Asia. Do away with the complacent, even mystical Hegelian faith that history always progresses. It progresses, nevertheless, even in its bad side. No, we say a complete no to this, that history doesn't progress in this way, and this progress needs to be put to question, the progress of history along its bad side. And the bad side progress of history in India is displacement, dislocation of largely the indigenous population in India through big dams, through developmental projects. And this Marx critiques once and for all in Capital Volume 1, primitive accumulation, or what we have called original accumulation, and the violence of primitive and original accumulation. So we cannot in any way accept primitive or original accumulation as opening space for a kind of historical progress through the bad side. No, that kind of bad side progress is put to critique by both of us for very, very long now. This opens up for me the way we have to rethink Marxism, and this is another work that we have just finished last year. It will take us through a few steps, and this is the kind of the entire discussion today in one slide. Step one, we are arguing for a multiplicity of class processes. 1. 2, the capitalist class process is one of the many class processes around us. Hence, the need to look horizontally. 3, if the capitalist class process is only one of a multiplicity of class processes, then there are non-capitalist class processes. However, the hegemonization of the global South is in the translation of non-capitalist class processes into pre-capitalist class processes. This is crucial, actually. The conversion of non-capitalist class processes to pre-capitalist class processes. The presentation of non-capitalist class processes as pre-capitalist class processes. Okay. The presentation of third world as a pre-capitalist space, hence in need of rescue, hence in need of development, hence in need of capitalist development, hence backward, superstitious, underdeveloped, pre-capitalist. What we have argued in our work is that the pre-capitalist space is actually a non-capitalist space. And this is the distinction between pre and non. The pre-capitalist space is a non-capitalist space having both exploitative and non-exploitative class processes. The non-exploitative class processes, as we have shown with the arrow over here, is the space from where one can build post-capitalist praxis. So post-capitalist praxis requires two struggles. One, a struggle on the capitalist class process within the capitalist class process, and one, a struggle on non-capitalist class processes which are exploitative. However, as Anjan has shown in one of his earlier talks, which I will show as we go down, the question of reconstruction is important over here. The non-capitalist class processes which are non-exploitive need not be converted to capitalist class processes which are exploitative first and then taken to post-capitalist processes. No, they can be retained, they can be preserved, they can be conserved, they can be taken to reconstruction. And this is the work Bhavya, Swarnima, and Ashutosh have tried to do actually in central India. The whole work has been to do this reconstructive work, which Anjan argued in one of his earlier talks here only in this series. And it then post-capitalist praxis requires three struggles: struggle on capitalist class processes, exploitative; struggle on non-capitalist class processes, exploitative; and reconstruction of non-capitalist class processes which are non-exploitative, holding on to them, not giving them up, not converting them to capitalist class processes. The whole idea of development is to convert these non-capitalist class processes to capitalist class processes. In that sense, a quick line over here, the whole problem is not only exploitation. The problem is also the cure we are given from time to time. The whole problem is not only the disease called exploitation or oppression. The problem is not oppression and exploitation. The problem is not just the disease. The problem is also the cure we are given in East Asia from time to time. And capitalist development is given to us as a cure. One of the cures is capitalist development that convert non-capitalist class processes to capitalist class processes. We want to resist that. We want to convert exploitative non-capitalist class processes to non-exploitative non-capitalist class processes, and not convert non-capitalist class processes to capitalist class processes. We want to resist that. So in that sense, in East Asia, one of the problems for us is to also resist the hegemonic cures and the fetishization of the third world as pre-capitalist into a third worldism. I'll come to that. The delusional veil called third world that is created for us. And we begin to believe in it. And we begin to see ourselves as third world, as third worldist, as lacking, as underdeveloped, as pre-capitalist. This is the delusional veil, and this is where we collaborate unknowingly, unconsciously. We give consent to our own servitude, and that Spinoza quote is hence important, actually, in Marx. So the problem is not the disease only. The problem is also the cures that are given to us from time to time, capitalist development being one cure, and the fetishization of our life worlds and worldviews into third worldism. I will go to the next point and mark a sharp difference between, on the one hand, as you can see on the left-hand side of the screen, capitalist development, which is growth-centric development coming with progress, modernization, industrialization, and urbanization. I'm not getting into the detail of it. Anjan has done it much, much better in his talk earlier. But the whole question standing on the step ladder, what I'm calling the step ladder over here. You can see the ladder over here, the movement from underdeveloped to developed, and the transition is the transition from pre-capital to capital. This has been given to us like a formula. Third world, Global South, East Asia has to move from underdeveloped to developed. They have to move, in other words, transit. That's the transition debate. They have to transit from pre-capital to capital. We are critiquing this formulation called capitalist development. We are arguing, we are critiquing capitalocentrism and Orientalism. We are critiquing, and you can see that in the picture below, what is capitalocentric Orientalism and what is our critique of it. Quickly put it is this. I've taken this picture at the entry gate into the African Museum, and at the very entry we are warned, you have a white worldview, and the white worldview will not let you see, understand, experience the African Black Museum. Okay, you will not see blackness because you have a white worldview. Similarly, we will not see world of the third because we have an Orientalist worldview. We will see ourselves as third worldish, as lacking, as backward, as pre-capitalist, as underdeveloped. Two, we will not see non-capital. We will not see the post-capitalist possibilities in non-capital because we are capitalocentric. We are capitalocentric, like androcentric in worldview. We are capitalocentric. We are capitalocentric. We are seeing the world through the lens of capital. Hence, we don't see non-capital. It's not that we don't see labor. We also don't see non-capital. We don't see the post-capitalist possibilities in non-capital. We only see capital. And I'll come to that, why we only see capital. And from the critique of capitalocentric Orientalism, we move to counter-hegemonic praxis, the movement from non-capital to post-capital. This opens up in a summary form the whole problem for us. Let us go a little bit mathematically over here. We have as if divided the world into that which is P, capital, and pre-capital means negative P, minus P, lacking P. Lacking P, pre-capital, the lacking underside of capital, third world, and the pre-capitalist third world has to become capitalist first world. This is the formula we are offered, P, not P. Anjan and I have tried to move from a logic of P not P to a logic of PQ, a logic of difference rather than lack. We are moving from lack to difference. Q, which is different, not lacking. And this is our way of presenting it, P, Q dash, capital, non-capital, or P minus P and Q double dash, which is that triad, capital, third world, and what we are calling world of the third. Q double prime is the space for post-capitalist praxis. In that sense, we are critiquing, building on Dipesh Chakrabarti's work on two histories of non-capital, not just the two histories of capital, but the two histories of non-capital. One history of non-capital is to be pre-capitalist, which is the capitalocentric Orientalist understanding of non-capital. The other history of non-capital is to be post-capitalist. However, as you can see in the iceberg on the right-hand side of the screen, when we look at an iceberg, we see only 1/11 of the iceberg above water. And we sometimes think that is the iceberg. But no, 10/11 of the iceberg is below water. 1/11 of the iceberg above water is the capitalist class process. And the 10/11 of the iceberg below water is the non-capitalist class process. It is a larger space, actually. And the work of hegemony and fetishization is to actually make us see only that 1/11 of the iceberg above water and come to the delusional belief that the whole of reality is capitalist. But what we show is that the whole of reality is not capitalist. In a certain formulation, we try to show that there are only 2 capitalist class processes in 24 capitalist class sets. 2 capitalist class sets in 24 capitalist class sets. Okay, I'll come to that quickly. And these 2 capitalist class sets come to hegemonize our imagination. And we begin to believe that, well, that 1/11 above water is the entire iceberg, is the entire reality. The 10/11 non-capitalist class process below water is fetishized into pre-capitalist, into third worldism, into a delusional veil for us. Hence, you have got the formulation. Now, we are not looking at world like a step ladder or like one tree with one stem and trunk like that, but a multiplicity of class processes, plurality, multiplicity. The pictorial representation is important for us to movement from a monotheism, capitalism, leviathan of that kind to a multiplicity of class processes. I will quickly end with a quick movement from transition to post-capitalist praxis and transformation. And I've given you the link to the YouTube talk Anjan had delivered. It's a wonderful exposition of what I'm trying to do now. A much more detailed one, but I have to do this to actually take us to the core of post-capitalist praxis. This is a way to look at capitalist class process. One of the ways, of course. Here, what we are doing is that We are looking at a labor and we are calling it A. We are looking at non-labor, the non-laboring, the non-performing subject, and we are calling him B. And direct labor, we are calling her A, and collective labor, we are calling it C. So A is individual labor, C is collective labor, and B is the non-laborer, the non-performing capitalist, for example. This opens up for us a space where we have A class processes, the individual laborer performing and appropriating surplus. We have CC, collective of laborers performing and appropriating surplus. We have AB, an individual laboring, and a non-performer B appropriating the surplus. Uber would be a very good example of this. The Uber person who is driving the car, but the owner is elsewhere appropriating the surplus. CB is a conventional capitalist firm or industry or enterprise or factory where you have a collective of laborers and one non-performing appropriator, the capitalist, or a board of directors could also be appropriating it. So you have CB, the conventional industry Marx talks of in the Communist Manifesto, AB, the Uber driver, CC, communist class process, AA, individual performer, maybe working from home, an IT sector worker, or an individual peasant or a farmer in central India working on her own land, producing rice and appropriating the surplus herself, maybe consuming it. And we have CA and AC class process. AC is individual performers, multiple individual performers, and then appropriating collectively, which is happening in India. And then CA class process, where there are multiple performers, but one of the performers is appropriating it. Hence, it's exploitative. It could be a family farm with a male head. This takes me actually to the model of the iceberg once again. Let's take AB and CB for the time being as the exploitative class processes. Okay, AB and CB, and those two are also could be capitalist class processes, and they are seen above water. That's the 1/11 above water. What you have below are a host of class processes which are non-capitalist class processes, non-AB, non-CB, and they could be AA, they could be CC, they could be AC. There could be AB and CB below also, but for simplicity, I'm putting it this way now. The exploitative class processes AB, CB as if above water, and we are seeing them and we are thinking they are the only ones around us, but there are other kinds of class processes around us. I will come to the last two slides now. Anjan, I think I'm doing okay with time. I'll take 5 more minutes.
Fine.
I'll come to the last two slides now. This Anjan had also taken up actually in his talk, but I'm trying to just clinch the world of the third angle through this. This is a structure. We'll have to spend 5-6 minutes on this. This is a structure we have tried to set up over the years, which is actually bringing in four variables. 1 and 2, we have already done. Performance and appropriation. Who performs, who appropriates. If the one who performs and appropriates, it is non-exploitative. If the one who performs doesn't appropriate, it is exploitative. Exploitative class processes can be capitalist, can be feudal, can be slave, but let's not go into too many complexities today. Let us just divide it into these two, exploitative, non-exploitative, and have performance and appropriation as two of the variables. Let us bring in two more over here. One, what is produced? It is coming in the commodity form, or is it coming in the non-commodity form? So you can produce rice in a rice field and not sell it in the market. It may not become a commodity. It can be consumed, it can be gifted, it can be shared. On the other hand, you may sell that rice, it may become a commodity. Okay, so in that sense, you may have commodities, you may not have commodities. Fourth variable, the worker's remuneration can happen in terms of wages, may not happen in terms of wages. Okay, and the global south is replete with processes where there are no wages. So we will not over-fetishize the perspective of wage or over-fetishize the perspective of commodities. Okay, there may be commodity forms, there may not be commodity forms, there may be wage, there may not be wage. Given this situation, in other words, the necessary labor equivalent may come in wage form, may not come in wage form. But what is important for us over here as we look at this is that the AA class process then can be broken down into 4: commodity wage, non-commodity wage, commodity non-wage, non-commodity non-wage. All kinds of processes can happen over there. But what is most important for us are A, B, and CB in this class set formulation. Let's look at A, B, and CB. Of the 4 possibilities in AB, only one, number 5, is AB exploitative in the commodity form and in the wage form. Now, what is the definition of a capitalist class process or a capitalist class set? In a capitalist class process or a capitalist class set, and that is how Marx defines it, we have the final produce in the commodity form, as in 5. We have wage because labor power itself is a commodity. And 3, we have exploitation like AB. So number 5, AB with the commodity form and with wage, labor power as commodity, and exploitation because it's AB. B, the non-performing subject is the appropriator, like in Uber. AB, commodity wage, that 5 put in red is the capitalist class set. And 17, similarly, CB, community of workers like in a factory, and B, a board of director or a non-performing capitalist subject appropriating in the commodity form with wages to the collective of workers and exploitation, CB, is the capitalist class set. In other words, of the 24 class sets, only 2 are capitalist class sets, 5 and 17. The rest 22 are non-capitalist class sets. Of the rest 22 non-capitalist class sets, I will take you to the next slide. Okay. Some class sets, and as you can see from the slide, the even number class sets, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, are class sets that cannot be connected to the circuits of global capital because the output over here is in the non-commodity form. As you can see in 2, 4, 6, 8, up to 24, all the even number class sets, the output is not in the commodity form, and hence they cannot connect to the circuits of global capital. They cannot connect to what we have called the local global market. They remain within the local market. These 12 class sets then are class sets that are not hooked, connected to the circuits of global capital. This is what we have called world of the third. However, interestingly, all of world of the third is not non-exploitative. As you can see, parts of world of the third are exploitative and parts of world of the third are non-exploitative. If you look at the last column on the right-hand side. The non-exploitative class sets within world of the third are a condition for post-capitalist praxis or post-capitalist futures. And this is exactly the work, as I showed, Bhavya, Swarnima, and Ashutosh have been trying to do. The reconstructive work Anjan spoke of in his earlier talk on development. There are exploitative class sets within world of the third, and there the struggle is to move from exploitation to non-exploitation. The struggle is not to move from world of the third to capitalist class sets. The struggle is not to take them to 5 and 17. The struggle is to take them towards 22 or 24. The struggle is to take them towards 2 or 4. 2 or 4. Okay. The struggle is to take them to 14 or 16. That is another kind of post-capitalist praxis. Conversion of exploitative class sets within world of the third to non-exploitative class sets. Not 517, not capitalist class sets. The third struggle is to struggle on exploitation, on wages, within capitalist class sets 5 and 17. I end then with 3 forms of post-capitalist praxis. 1, anti-capitalist struggle within 5 and 17. 2, anti-exploitative struggle within exploitative class sets within world of the third. And number 3, preservation, conservation, and reconstruction of non-exploitative class sets within world of the third towards post-capitalist futures. Thank you.
Thank you, Anup. I'll now throw the, we can have a discussion now. Any questions?
Do I keep the slide or come out of it?
You can come out of it. If required, you may put it back.
I will put it back. Yeah. Maybe you can start with one.
Okay, I'll start with one. One thing was at the end, it was not clear, but as far as I understand, even those class sets with commodity form, which are not in non-commodity form, but in commodity form, would be part of the world of the third.
Yes,
So,
yes.
And could be, some of them could be non-exploitative as well. So,
yes.
So this takes us beyond, I think, missed opportunity in the 20th century Marxism, where the debate turned into market versus planning, as a way of rethinking socialism. That's not the fundamental issue, at least from the Marxist perspective. So we need to get away from commodity versus non-commodity nature of production and distribution per se, you know. Am I correct
Yes.
in giving this assessment?
Yes. I think we ran out of time a little bit, and it was a little rushed at the end. I think this is an important point, and I think we had had a discussion with Shiny also once on this. Your point is a very important point, actually. The whole question of the planning question, actually, and the question of the state and commodity, non-commodity. Also, Anjan, over here, one important point is the reduction of capitalism to market. Capitalism is not only market. There have been markets prior to capitalism, and there have been commodities even prior to capitalism in earlier historical epochs. So commodity market is not equal to capitalism. It's not equivalent to capitalism. And yes, you are absolutely right, actually. Right in pointing it out. Good you pointed it out, actually, because otherwise there could be a misunderstanding. One could feel that the world of the third is merely non-commodity. No, there could be commodity forms in world of the third, but these commodity forms will not be hooked to a larger commodity form, the circuits of global capital, but they could be bought and sold in what you have also designated as local markets, and those commodity forms could be sustained, retained, they may be non-exploitative. And actually, the example I gave of the three of them, the work they do in central India, we do sell the rice, actually. So we do sell the rice sometimes in the market, but the class process is a communist class process, CC class process, or the class process is an AC class process. Sometimes the class process rarely is an AA class process. Individual peasant farmers, largely women farmers, coming together and producing rice, largely rice and millets, and selling them in the market or consuming it. But I think this example clarifies it further, that there are AA individual woman farmers who could sell the rice or the millets in the market. There are CC women farmers who can sell the rice in the market. There are AC women farmers coming together as a collective and selling the rice in the market. But these are world of the third markets, and these are commodity forms that are at work over here. And they are not hooked to the circuits of global capital. Whereas, as we tried to show in that paper, Anjan, Bhavya and I, that the cotton that is produced in Orissa, a part of India, the cotton as commodities connected to the circuits of global capital, that cotton moves. So yes, it's I think good that you pointed it out, that there could be commodity.
There is one more thing. If you could spend just 2-3 minutes on it, make a difference between, or relation rather, but still keep the three also separate, between world of the third as perspective, space, and place. Could you just clarify?
I did not do that.
Yeah, because we know the model now. So
yeah,
if you clarify.
I did not do that, actually. The first step, let us spend a few minutes on this, because this clarifies it better, actually. The first question, where we began, actually, fetishism, hegemony, that is an important point, because what we are arguing, actually, especially in that book, World of the Third and Hegemonic Capital, is that there are things in the world that we do not get to see. It kind of Berger's ways of seeing. There are things we don't see. We don't see the mother's household labor. We don't see woman's household labor, actually. There are things we don't see. And in that sense, what we get to see is a kind of overwhelming, devastating, delusional capitalism all over, and we are third worldism. We are underdeveloped, we are backward, we are pre-capitalist. So this picture of the world, actually, this image of the world is cut, is fractured, is breached by the idea of world of the third. It actually becomes a perspective. It actually becomes a way to look at the world, not in terms of first world and third world. Developed first world, underdeveloped third world. Capitalist first world, pre-capitalist third world, but non-capitalist world of the third. So that becomes a perspective, actually. That is a way to look at the world very, very differently. And if we get stuck with the 1/11th of the iceberg above water, we never get to see this. We miss this perspective. Hence, world of the third and is perspectival in that sense. Number one. Number two, world of the third is a space, as we saw just now, that 5 and 17 are capitalist class sets, but there are other class sets, which is why world of the third is a concrete, real. There are real world of the thirds in the world. There are real world of the thirds in rural parts of the world. There are real world of the thirds in urban parts of the world. World of the third is not a rural thing. It's not an Indian thing. It's not a southern thing. World of the third is there in Washington, there in New York. Okay. So world of the third is a space, is a space where, and we could see those class sets, class processes going on, where world of the third is a practice, actually, a practice of communist class processes, a practice of AC community class processes or AA class processes, and those are going on in New York. So there is no need to, in fact, we are also trying to move out of the north-south, east-west divide through this, actually. So there are circuits of global capital, and there are cocooned spaces called world of the third. The interesting part over here, and here actually Freud becomes important. The interesting part is that those cocooned world of the spaces, either in a village in rural Bengal, in India, or in a city space in New York, are cryptid, are hidden. They are hidden. They will not get seen. They will not get seen. They will be missed by us. It's a kind of, as you are putting it, a missed encounter. As if a missed encounter with the space called world of the third. We will not see these cocooned spaces all around us because they are cryptid from us, because we are hegemonized. Because we are hegemonized, they are cryptid from us. They are secret to us. They are unknown to us. And Marx is a philosopher of the secret thereof. So many times he says secret, so many times he says congealed, hidden. The secret abode of production, the secret thereof, of the commodity form, the congealed labor. And we take it from Marx, actually, that the importance of the cryptid, the secret, the hidden world of the third as space. Number three, world of the third as place, which we take from, actually, Gibson Graham, Stephen Healy, and others, actually. World of the third as place. Let us spend two minutes on this. World of the third, then, is a subject question. And I really did not have the time to do that today, but you have helped me with the question, actually. World of the third is a subject question. It's a question of the subject. In that sense, any subject, me, you, the others in the room, have a world of the third facet or face in us. We also have a facet and a face in us, a subject position in us that is tied to the circuits of global capital. That we are using Zoom means we are tied to the circuits of global capital, even if we are talking about post-capitalist praxis in world of the third context. So as subjects, we have a part of us hooked to the circuits of global capital. We have a part of us that is tied to world of the third subject positions. Could be. And it's a battle within the subject, battle within us, actually, that is going on. And that is Marxian politics, the battle within us, actually, that is going on. And in this battle within us, world of the third subject positions can become a place for post-capitalist praxis, a place for post-capitalist futures. The other is that we give up, we become fatalistic, we become docile subjects, and we give up and we surrender to capitalism, to that part of us tied to the circuits of global capital, the Airtel or the Vodafone SIM card we carry actually in our phones, the connection it makes with the circuits of global capital. We give in, we give up, we begin to think our servitude is our salvation. We can make that mistake, actually, and that is where our false consciousness lies, actually, that we can give in to capitalism. The other is that we don't give in to capitalism. We resolutely fight, we resist, and we hold on to world of the third subject positions as place for a post-capitalist praxis and future and post-capitalist subjectivities, if I may put it that way. So in that sense, perspective, space, and place become very, very important when we think of world of the third.
So world of the third remains then, in the end, was, and I think that's the case, a quintessential political question from a Marxist.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's the reason why you had to move from, face the development question, move from third world to world of the third.
Yes.
Because it's
You finish first. You finish.
Like
Sorry.
Marx did, moving away from classical political economy, that understanding,
Yes.
to a different kind of understanding of economy and society. So in that sense, your work conjoins this idea, tries to conjoin the two edges.
Yes. And Anjan, see, like Marx moves from classical philosophy, classical idealist philosophy to materialist philosophy. Marx moved from classical materialist philosophy to practical philosophy, the materialism of practice rather than the mechanical, inert materialism. Marx moves from classical political economy. So Marx actually makes space for this movement, and we have to then move from third world to world of the third, because world of the third is also a vision. It's the world of the third. It's not third world. It's not an inert space called third world, actually. It's the world of the third. It's moving to the subject, and hence it's political, actually, that we have to I did not bring outside today. It's not needed. It will make it too complicated. But we have to move to the subject, at least, and the subject of Marxian politics. And you know me, that I have not done this for any academic reason at all. I was fine in medicine. I did not come to the university for academic pursuits, actually. I came to the university or to social sciences, human sciences, because I wanted to understand the political better, actually, which my medical training was not clarifying as much. Actually, I had to read books you all read, actually. I had to learn economics as much as I could from you, actually, because I had to understand political economy and its critique, actually. So I had to become kind of a student of yours in economics, like that, because I came here for political reasons, not for academic reasons, actually. And I have no problems being a student, actually, because the political is most important for me. And hence, actually, I referred to that. You also referred to that, the work that we tried to do, that we tried to do in Central India. In fact, I don't know too much about that work, even the work Mekla and others tried to do during COVID with respect to their schools. I think are also interesting instances of can be shown as world of the third praxis. My limited understanding of it, but whatever I know of Meghla's work. So in that sense, these are instances where we try to do it actually do post-capitalist praxis. Actually,
Okay. Now, if others have any questions, clarifications.
May I
Please.
ask a question?
yes, Ashutosh, come.
Hi. Yeah, I was listening to Anjan sir when he was talking about the. I will frame it this way, that we talk about democracy, and in democracy policies are made, and these policies are like very general policies for almost everyone, every individual, and mostly as uh, considering everyone as a citizen rather than an individual. So either it is a citizen or a family. And right now I'm working with the Didai community, Didai indigenous communities in South Orissa. So there is a policy by Orissa government which is called Orissa Millet Mission. Now, millet has been always considered a subaltern food, we can say, or a rejected food for a very long time. Now the state is like all of a sudden very interested in doing millets, and these communities have been traditionally growing millet, and now state has come and state is telling them how to grow it, and the facets have changed altogether, the reasons have changed. For state, the reason is nutrition, marketing, urban market, and these are the logics behind doing millets now for state, whether it is Indian state or the Orissa government, Orissa state. Now, but in my research, I'm slowly seeing that millets are like integrated in the society, in the social milieu altogether, and they have a very different reason to do millets. It's the geography which somehow has enabled them to create a lot of millet varieties, select a lot of millet varieties and all. Now, my question is basically on this: that when we talk about state, whether it is a democratic state or a autocratic state, whatever state it is, it has a very generalized idea of population that resides in the sovereign space of it. Now, communities like indigenous communities, for that matter, are the spaces where, uh, and as you rightly said, so that these world of the third spaces are everywhere. And within a village also, there are world of the third spaces, because I cannot generalize that a village is not the total space is like world of the third space. It is not.
No,
Yeah,
no.
yeah. So in these spaces, when the meaning of millets for Adivasi community is something, and due to the resistance, obviously food sovereignty movement and all have contributed to the policies like millet mission, and it is being held by academicians and everywhere. But I see that on ground it is replica of green revolution. So the only crop has uh, millets has replaced or kind of substituted rice,
We, yeah.
rice and wheat. Yeah. So my question is that when a knowledge or when a lifestyle of the world of the third, when people resist for it, when people like uh, try to make the state understand that okay, this is not the way we are, we have different food, we have different way of living. But when the state takes up that particular thing, it changes the very fundamental framework within which it operated in the original spaces from where the resistance happened. How does this dichotomy between the state and the communities that live within the state, is there any, at all a possibility that ever there would be a place where Gandhi's decentralization, the idea of decentralization in a statist form, can happen, or the world of the third actually can flourish with, uh, even if it is the major larger society that wants to accept millet, but it is not accepting millet as food grain, as a cultural thing. They are accepting food millets as a medicine, as nutrition. So the idea totally changes. So even if the world of the third is being translated into other worlds, whatever variant of the world it is, the meaning changes totally. So and I'm also coming from the ecological perspective, that then is preservation without culture going to help us in the longer run?
Anjan, do you want to respond to this? It's
No,
not that I have to give
you
all
are
the
the speaker.
answers.
Please, you are the speaker.
See, this is exactly the problem, Ashutosh. This is exactly why for so many years we have had to painstakingly distinguish. And you are seeing the problem, actually. See, one, economy, politics, culture, and nature are overdetermined. All four go together. So let us also not reduce world of the third to economy. We have tried to show a process, but even class process is political, cultural, economic, and natural processes taken in their overdetermination. So Ashutosh, first thing first, we have to take all four in their overdetermination. And good you are asking this question, actually. Good you brought the ecological question at the end. It's a very sophisticated question you have asked, actually. Our book is a long response to your question, actually. The World of the Third and Hegemonic Capital book. Number two, World of the Third has life worlds. Hence, it's World of the Third. It has a life world. It has natural, economic, cultural, political processes going on in that world. Three, World of the Third also has worldviews. So it has life worlds and worldviews. I had a slide after this on life worlds and worldviews. I did not bring it up today. And we are seeing what then? We are seeing the conversion of that life world, which for today's discussion is non-capitalist, non-exploitative also. Not only non-capitalist, non-exploitative, okay? There could be exploitative processes also over there. There could be commodity processes, non-commodity processes, wage processes, non-wage processes. And as you have rightly pointed out, the entire village is not world of the third. It's a subject position. Now, what is the activity that is going on? The activity that is going on is the conversion of this life world and the processes therein and the worldviews therein, where millet is also sacred. Millet is not just a product. All of that is being converted first. It is first being hooked to the circuits of global capital and the logic of a productivist state. Whichever state, and state is somewhere or the other powerful and autocratic, somewhere or the other. The very definition of the state, actually, in Marxism is very different from the definition of the state in liberalism, actually. So, it is being first hooked to the circuits of global capital, connected to the circuits of global capital, and then the conversion is happening. The conversion is happening now in terms of some indices which come from a competitive, efficient, productivist world. And those indices are now marking millets. Millets are good for health, millets are good as nutrition, millets are beneficial, millets are good commodities, millets can be sold in a five-star hotel now as morning breakfast. So it is a very different reason to produce millets now, that the state capital and along with it capitalist development, because the indigenous will now be lured actually into believing that, oh, if I sell millets, I'll become rich. Okay. So the worldview will also change along with this. Now, Ashutosh, see, capitalism is not an economic form only. And this is the beauty of Marx's work. Capitalism is a form of life. Capitalism is a form of relationships. And I hinted at it actually when I said capitalism converts relationship between human beings to relationship between objects and things. It objectifies relationships. It thingifies relationships. So now we don't have a relationship with the indigenous. We have a relationship with millets, actually. And the indigenous is now told to have an objectified relationship with millets. Exactly what you see with nature or the ecological question. The relationship with the river that the indigenous has, or many communities has. Why indigenous only? Even we can have that relationship with the river, is that of a relative, not that of an object, not that of a thing, actually. So that of a living relative, actually. So in that sense, capitalism doesn't only convert economic processes or class processes. Capitalism also converts human relationships. And Marx's Capital is not just a book on the economy. It is a book on and of life. It is a book on and of subjects. It is a book on how we live. Because Marx's question was not how we know. Marx was not an academic in the conventional sense, actually. Marx's question is not how we know. Marx's question is how we live. And World of the Third actually tries to again live that question. Marx lived all his life, how we live. But how we live is also connected to who am I, actually. Am I a subject unthinkingly walking into the circuits of global capital, seeing my servitude as my salvation? And that's why that quote is so important, actually. And Marx got very interested in that Spinoza idea, actually. And this perhaps shows his work on labor, that why does labor see servitude as salvation, actually? And that is what we need to come out of. So the indigenous may today see millets as salvation, actually, but it will take away a lot from that life, like we have lost a lot from our lives. So in that sense, Ashutosh, this conceptual ground clearing is required to see how we can battle it out, actually, how we can have producer collectives, communist collectives of millet producers. And it cannot be only ways of knowing. It cannot be only anthropology, hence. It has to be action research. It has to be transformative praxis. It has to be post-capitalist praxis alongside. Otherwise, we will only lament, like docile subjects, what the state and the circuits of global capital in unison, together, intertwined, are doing in the name of capitalist development, or in the name of development. In India, we don't say capitalist development. We keep the first word silent, actually. We say development, but we mean capitalist development. So in that sense, this conversion of indigenous class processes to capitalist class processes is exactly what you are seeing over there. And we cannot sit and watch and write about it and document it like docile subjects. Then we will only be writing laments. And one of the important points of the political is that we do not only restrict ourselves to laments, but try to actually work on transformative praxis.
Thank you, Anup, for your response. I think the time is, we are way over time. So yeah, are there any quick questions? If not, then I'll close the session.
I
had one question. Yeah.
Quick one.
I think Seong-Jin also had a question, Anjan.
Sorry, I did.
He raised his hand.
You go ahead, Roshni. You go ahead.
Roshni, go ahead. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I was just asking Anu, like for someone who's not from a philosophy or an economics background, okay, and someone who, is practicing as a psychotherapist. And as a person, how do you sort of see this happening in a practical, space, life? Like, I get it. Like, I understood your discussion and your talk. Thank you for that, because I thought maybe I won't, but you made it very easy. But how do you sort of convert it into a daily practice where all of us, as you said, are, subjects of circuits of global economy? So at an imaginary level, sometimes it's difficult to also imagine it. It seems a little utopian. And you said not to be fatalistic and nihilistic and, be silent design receivers of circuits of global economy. So just that. Yeah.
I will give a quick response to that. I'll be speaking on this tomorrow, actually,
Okay.
in India, actually. Quick response. I don't know whether this is true. Maybe Seongjin can help me actually to find out whether this is true. In China, there was one effort at one time. I don't even know whether it's still alive, but it doesn't matter whether it's true. It's a beautiful story, actually. Okay. The doctors in a hospital, in a locality, were told that you will get salary for the health of the community. Okay. That at the end of the month, we will see how healthy is the community all around, and you will get your salary for the health of the community, not to cure an individual person only. And in one line, it is this: medicine or therapeutic work can be taught within the circuits of global capital, which is to divide the world into normal and pathological, disease into individual disease, and then cure individual disease in a capitalist hospital. Okay. And you then have a relationship not with the person or with health, but with disease, the thing called disease. Okay. So you can have a relationship with the disease, and then you just cure the disease and take the money for the cure. Okay, so the doctor is within the circuits of global capital. That's a therapeutic relationship. But the other one, what we are trying to argue, is that medicine tries to keep us healthy and heals us rather than only cures us. Okay, so this is a very quick response. Tomorrow I'll do this in detail. Okay, a very quick response how even medical, psychological, therapeutic work, healing work can be thought of outside the circuits of global capital, outside the hegemonic economic form and the hegemonic life form in a post-capitalist way. And I'm not so worried whether this Chinese story is true or not true. It is a beautiful myth. It is a beautiful story, actually, that the doctors in a community and a locality are being paid for the health of the community, okay, rather than for curing individual persons, actually. Yeah. Because we have run out of time, Roshni.
No, one last question. Thank you, Roshni, for, a very interesting question. Yeonjong, you had a question?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, please go ahead.
And thank you very much for your great talk. Yes, I learned very much, and your presentation is really helpful for our project for the post-capitalism. So your presentation and your book seems to provide us very valuable insights. And yeah, my question is that I especially is your map of class process is very interesting, and is really rigorous analysis of the class processes. My question is that you according to your class maps, the capitalist exploitative class process is only 2 among 24. So it's 1/11. So, but I think that it may be underestimate the hegemonic power of the capitalist class process, and it's overemphasize the rest of the class process, as you, according to your term, is a world of the third. However, your class map seems to be very analytical, and it could be empirically testable. So, so what do you expect the temporal trend of the class processes? So, I think although it is only, according to your class maps, it's only 1/11. I think if we, for example, apply your class model to the labor statistics like that, we may find the capitalist class process would be the function is even quantitatively is significantly larger than 1/11, and the function will be increasing in the temporal trend. For example, the recent transformation of the China seems that the capitalist process is increasing. So it means that we still, a practical implication is that we still, I think that the struggle against the capitalist process within capitalist class process is still very important. So, yes.
So, Anup, please respond.
Yes, this is an excellent question, actually. And we have to respond to this. Not a response, but the reflection on this, actually. First, one, the class analytic, which you saw as the class analytic framework, is actually trying to first walk out of the belief that has got into our heads in the last 100 years, and that is the belief capitalism wants to generate, that everything is capitalist. All our relationships are capitalist, everything has been taken over, and there is no way out of capitalism. So the Tina factor, there is no alternative. There is no alternative to capitalism. So our work was first to actually cut capitalism down a little bit. Okay, so first cut it down a little bit and show key and question that capitalist belief that capitalism generates. That is how capitalism becomes an ism, like a religion, actually. That it becomes an ism. By generating this, there is no alternative. The Tina syndrome, let's call it the Tina syndrome among all of us. We all think, oh, it's capitalism. Nothing can be done about it. It's all capitalism. So our first step one was to first reduce that, the power of that myth, the power of that fetishism of capitalism, actually, the power of that delusion that is created, that everything is capitalism and there is no way out of capitalism. Step one. Step two, we absolutely agree with you. If we do an empirical analysis, we will see that larger parts of the produce output is in the commodity form. Larger labor processes are in the wage form. Step 2. However, all processes that are in the commodity form, as Anjan also tried to point out, are not capitalist commodities. There could be other forms of commodities. Number 2B is that all wage, that is in all labor that is in the wage form, may not be capitalist labor. Actually, the capitalist wage, they may be wage in other forms of labor, in the other 22 class sets. So that is step 2. Step 3, and this is where your question becomes very, very important. This is why we titled our book World of the Third and Hegemonic Capital. Capital is still hegemonic. Capital is still powerful. Capital is still trying to completely colonize our lives. And there, one point we did not bring it up because there was no time for that. It is a little more complex, that even the non-capitalist class processes do not remain non-capitalist class processes, because the current trend in capital is actually to connect capitalist class processes and non-capitalist class processes. And we see that in the global south and in India, especially actually, there is a non-capitalist household class process going on. It's no wage, nothing of commodities, etc. Something is getting produced, say cigarettes. Cigarettes of a certain kind are getting produced in the household. But circuits of global capital has its merchants. They would come and take the cigarettes from this household, which is a non-capitalist class process, and take them, and they will then move all around the globe. In the global market, they may be sold in Frankfurt tomorrow. Actually, they're indeed sold in Frankfurt, I saw, okay, to my utter amazement, okay, how they travel, okay. A non-capitalist class process is no longer only a non-capitalist class process. So you're absolutely correct, actually, that the non-capitalist class process is tied to the circuits of global capital. They are hooked to the circuits of global capital, and their produce are being taken away like that. So leather for Gucci, say, for example, our leather belt, cotton for our arrow shirts, okay. So, also in the millets example of Ashutosh, who asked that question regarding millets, actually, these would be produced in non-capitalist class processes, but taken away into the circuits of global capital through what we have called local global markets. Local global markets are connected now. That is the globalization of capitalism, actually. That is global capitalism, actually. So we absolutely agree with you, actually. Capitalism is constantly increasing its power. And hence we have to fight at 3 levels. Circuits of global capital, capitalist class sets, capitalist class process, as well as non-capitalist class sets and class processes. Because in non-capitalist class sets and class processes also, we have to try to cut our ties with capital sometimes make them non-exploitative. So it is just an argument for multiplicity and complexity, actually. It is not to say capital is very, 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 very feeble. No, it is very powerful, but part of its power is also hegemonic power, fetishistic power. It's not real power. Part of its power is real. It is connected non-capitalist class processes to the circuits of global capital now. More and more informal sector class processes are getting connected to the circuits of global capital. It's connect with the informal sector now in the global south, actually. So it has concrete power, it has hegemonic power, it has fetishistic power. But we first wanted to cut its power a little bit because we want to come out of that Tina syndrome. There is no alternative syndrome. And then we want to argue that these are the real concrete struggles at each step, actually, that we have to follow. The only one-liner over here, the last line actually, is that we cannot have a vague struggle against capitalism. We have to have a concrete, real struggle against capitalism at each layer, at each level. And the fight has to be multiple. The fight has to be plural. The fight has to be at every quarter, every nook and corner of capitalism, we will fight. So the argument is to fight at multiple levels and definitely fight capitalism with all our passion. And your point is very, very well taken. Capitalism is powerful in the concrete real form. In a temporal way, it's becoming more powerful. Capitalism is powerful in a hegemonic fetishistic form, but we also want to show that there are other possibilities also, and that we see as Marxist, because Marx also showed that labor has possibilities in 19th century capitalism. It's not that we want to fight it politically rather than give up.
Thank you very much.
But that's a very important point you are making, and that's the balance actually that we wanted to mark actually.
Thank you, Anup. And I think we are now at the end of the session, and from SSK Research Cluster, Post-Capitalism and Innovation of Marxism, Future for East Asia in the Global Context, Gyeongsang National University. I would like to, thank you all, especially Anup, for sharing his thoughts with us.
Thank
So,
you. I must thank you all for this opportunity.
And for this very important, in my opinion, discussion.
Thank you so much.
So we will, with these words, I would want to, do I close the sessions?
Yes.
Yeah, I will then close the session.